Welcome everyone. I'll just kick this one off with a presentation I made. Let me see this one. So first of all, I'll just show you the schedule for the podcast of this evening. Right now we're in hour number 5, I think, of the 13-hour Pod-A-Thon. We'll be keeping you entertained for the next hour. And after that, Mr. Keith Parsons will take over with the WLA professionals. And then we have a 2-hour podcast from the Wireless Pubcast in store. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. But before we do that, let me just introduce myself first. My name is Dennis Klein. I'm pretty new to the community. I'm 44 years old. I live in a small town called Almelo in the Netherlands. I'm currently a network engineer at the TWS group, and you can find me on Twitter at Wi-Fi Dennis. So in the next few minutes, I'd like to tell you exactly why I started the Wi-Fi channel and why I chose YouTube as my preferred platform. And it basically started about 10 years ago. As you can see behind me, I got basically re-interested into guitar playing. I've been playing back in my teen years, but then, after college, I started working, so I never touched the instrument ever again. But about 10 years ago, I started to regain interest, and I started looking around into resources, and pretty soon I found some very decent channels on YouTube, which basically gave me a whole lot of information that I just wish I knew back in my teen years. Examples of these are Ola Englund, Rob Chapman, and Phil X. These guys have been running successful YouTube channels for about 10 years, which are both entertaining and informative. And they did this by basically being themselves and talking about stuff that they like. In fact, they have been so successful that Ola Englund now has his own guitar brand, same as Rob Chapman. And Phil X even plays lead guitar now with Bon Jovi. So a couple of years ago, I started getting interest in Wi-Fi, and I started looking for similar channels, but I just couldn't find any. There were some tech channels that sometimes talk about Wi-Fi. There are conference presentations and webinars, but there didn't appear to be a CWNP level YouTube channel just dedicated to Wi-Fi. And since YouTube is one of my favorite resources for information, that's something I've always sorely missed. So back in 2018, I was able to attend a CWNA class by Devin Aiken, and that was a real game changer for me. That was the first time that someone actually explained the principles of Wi-Fi to me properly, without all of the myths and assumptions and marketing nonsense. So after getting my CWNA certificate, I decided to go further down the CWNP track. So last year, I also got my CWAP certificate, and I do intend to go all the way towards CWNE. Also last year, I was very fortunate to attend the WLPC conference in Prague. I doubt that it will be happening this year, but I was also very fortunate to give a last-minute 10 talk back at that conference. And I got some amazing feedback from the community, so that really inspired me to take it further. And since both Devin and Keith Parsons always stressed the importance of sharing knowledge, sharing information, and getting out there, I figured that a YouTube channel would be best fit for me. So basically, that's why I started the Wi-Fi channel. I think it's a great medium to share information in a useful and entertaining way. And it also has the possibility to reach out to a new generation of engineers, young people who are just getting started in working life and who also grew up with YouTube. It's also a great way to get the publishing requirements for my journey towards becoming a CWNE. And who knows, perhaps in a few years, I could be doing Wi-Fi for Bon Jovi. So my challenge for today was that I basically make 10 minutes pre-recorded and edited videos. So for today's event, I thought it would be nice to invite a couple of members from the Dutch chapter of the Wireless LAN Association. Also, since this is a WLA event, I thought it would be very appropriate. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Arjan Kievits, Mr. Bastiaan de Beer, and Mr. Mark Raats. Welcome, gentlemen. Maybe you can just shortly introduce yourself, starting with Arjan.
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to share my screen right away, or just have a quick talk?
Yeah, just a quick talk is okay.
Okay, well, Arjan Kievits, technical consultant, solution consultant, whatever consultant for the Wi-Fi at Consia in the Netherlands, formerly known as Vosco, which probably doesn't sense anything to anybody, but that doesn't matter. 49 years old, CWNE number 325, a dad of 2 beautiful girls and happily married, and next to Wi-Fi, big enjoying amateur astronomy and astrophotography. And you can find me on Twitter, Arjan Kievits, and I'm on LinkedIn. Not that hard to find, just type in my name, and Facebook as well, but not for business, just for the astro stuff.
Okay, thank you. Bastiaan, can you tell a bit about yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Because I'm testing Zoom on my iPad and have the other stuff on my laptop.
Okay.
It's okay, great. Well, I'm Bastiaan de Beer. I work with Wi-Fi for quite a long time, actually almost 20 years. But I started with Apple. There was an airport back then. It was all trial and error, and moved on to different things. And somewhere in 2013, I think I ran into people from Aerohive, so it took me a little bit to the next level. Did some certification training, and somehow I missed the exam. So I consider myself semi-certified for Aerohive. And later on, I got my CW, I think TS, the basic one, and then the CWNA. And I hope to do this year the CWAP. I've got my Ubiquity certification, and in my working life, I'm working as a freelance consultant for both Apple users and Wi-Fi users. I think the two are quite connected. And let's see, I'm losing track a little bit what I was trying to say, but I'll catch up later. I'll move on to the next one. Thank you.
Okay. Well, the next one you might know, it's Mr. Mark Raats. So, Mark, take it away.
I'm Mark. I'm working as a wireless consultant for Jaworks. Currently, one of the biggest customer that I'm working for, mostly full time, is the Dutch airport. I'm there responsible for Wi-Fi, BLE, and LoRa as well. And I try to host also some community events in the Netherlands, so now and then. And also in the name of the WLA. So just me trying to share my knowledge and get people together.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you're doing quite a good job at that. I've been to last year's event and the event at the beginning of this year, which I think was very well timed, since last year it was in April.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
I think it was in April. I should have canceled it because I think all the Corona started in March, around half March. So
yeah.
Could I started early this year? Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's start off with your presentation first, because earlier this year you were able to go to the WLPC conference in Phoenix, which
Correct.
I think is probably one of the last proper conferences about Wi-Fi this year. We'll just have to see how it goes for the rest of the year.
They still think that WTF will still go on, but next September is getting soon, so we will see. Yeah,
I saw that they're also considering a digital online event, so we'll just have to see.
Sure.
So you did a presentation about our neighbor's Wi-Fi 802.11be, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Let me see. We can skip this. We can skip that as well. Yeah, my first thoughts about BE was a lot of Belgium related stuff, chocolate and waffles and the beer, the fries.
Yeah.
But Yeah, a little bit of history. Wi-Fi 7 probably will be the name of the BE one, and called extremely high throughput. The timeline will be the task group started in 2019, May 2019, and the industrial certification probably around the end of 2023. And the main new things are, main new features are those. So it is for sure backwards compatible. It will be a real tri-band. You know, when you walk into the Best Buy or the Media Markt or which store, they always said like, yeah, this tri-band, and they have like 2 5 gigahertz bands in it, and they call it tri-band. But this will be a real tri-band, so it will be 2.4, 5 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz. Speed-wise, up to 30 gigabit per second.
Okay, so that's data rates?
And like the speed, like what they say about Wi-Fi 6 will reach the 10 gigabits.
Okay.
So like super fast.
Wow.
But that's possible with the 320 megahertz channels and the 100.
Okay.
So I mean, how many 320 megahertz channels do you have in your company?
In my company, I could probably only have one, I think.
So that's like the thing. Like I said, it sounds very interesting. 320 megahertz, even 160 megahertz is mandatory in the 6 gigahertz. So that's also pretty big. They go up to 16 spatial stream, 4096 QAM. So I'm not a Dart person, so I'm not sure how about you guys. I'm glad that I can reach the dartboard from a meter. So I'm not sure how it will do with the 4096 QAM. So if you see those things, what do you think about those features? What are your first thoughts about those features?
My first thoughts are that you have to be about 1 or 2 meters away from the access points to actually achieve this. And anything further than that, you're basically just operating at AX speeds.
Yeah.
Also, the dartboards make me a bit nauseous. It reminds me of those 3D prints, you know, back in the 90s. You could see this figure. Yeah.
True. So I personally, I don't think a lot of those things will happen very soon. All the things that are interesting, in my opinion, are the efficiency that 802.11be might gonna bring into. That's like that they will do the transmit opportunity in the 5 and the 6 gigahertz band. So they will send out a beacon in both 5 and 6, and that you also can transmit in 5 and 6. So you can send over 2 bands your data.
Okay.
Multi-band, multi-channel, full duplex. How many years, maybe Arjan knows that, how many years do we talk about full duplex and Wi-Fi?
As long as I can remember. No, that's just joking. It's been around.
And what I think about BE is that they put full duplex by multiple band, multiple channel. For example, I send in 40 the channel 40, and I will receive on channel 60, or I will send my data in the 5 gigahertz, and I will receive my data back on the 6 gigahertz. So in this way, they are trying to put full duplex into Wi-Fi, but with multi-band, multi-channel.
Wouldn't that require like 2 radios on the client?
Yeah, like I said, it sounds very interesting, but the question is like, how will that work with the clients? Like, you know, like how many clients do have 2 radios? And so, battery impact on the clients, like in a laptop for sure, but iPhone,
cost. Yeah.
but for sure, if you go in.
I think the impact on the clients especially will not make it a very popular option since, like you say, I mean, battery consumption is such a big issue. That's why we're getting all those faster Wi-Fi speeds. And now all of a sudden we ask a client to have 2 radios, which will drain the battery in about half the time. And also manufacturing costs much higher if you have to put 2 radios in one client. So
yeah, you cannot come with a cheap L chip for your handhelds. No.
No.
Agreed. other things, what you will see is like some coordination. So access points will coordinate more often. For example, like the coordinated ODMA, so that two access points will send data to one client. So with a high-speed backhaul, the access points are compatible, like connected to each other, and they will send the data to one client. Client can send to different access points that data, and they also use the coordinating null steering, what is used in multi-user MIMO. With that, they are trying to, well, it's said with AX, they're trying to put multi-user MIMO back in with both ways, uplink and downlink. And also with this, they are trying to put this into the field so that multiple clients and multiple access points can balance the data over different type of access points. So you see some speed, you see some efficiency, like where AX was very more into efficiency. BE will be like both speed, both efficiency, and also some coordination between access points, that they can find each other way better, that the clients is able to find the access point better. For example, when you see in AX with the research units, that AP1 sent two research units, fill those two research units, and then said, hey, AP2, you have some space left. I can use that space for that other client. So, like I said, it sounds all interesting, but the clients need to support it. And that's mostly what we see in the last couple of years, that clients and the features are not really aligned with each other.
Yeah. And also when I look at this, I think, how are you ever going to design this? Because basically with the design principles right now, you already need to look at your secondary coverage, but do we need a stronger signal strength from the secondary coverage to obtain this type of coordinated OFDMA? I'm very
Probably, yeah. Probably, because if your second access point is at -70 and you're doing a voice call, you want to do the data over both of the access points. Both of the access points need to be very strong to be able to send the data on appropriate speed.
Yeah. So this looks to me like it's more appropriate if you have like a big room or arena and you need to get high speed, high density Wi-Fi out there, and you won't have any walls between them, so you get a decent signal strength to each client. I think it could work in that scenario, but when you have access points in separate rooms, that could be a problem for this particular.
I think that BE is for sure not for every vertical possible.
Yeah.
So I'm agreed with that. The last thing, what is also interesting, is a hybrid ARC. And hybrid ARC means that the access point will store data that is not sent correctly. So for example, in this case, the MPDU2 was not able to, the access point was not able to decode that one. There's still being block egg, and the block egg will be only over MPDU1. So the access point will send the MPDU2 again, and with the stored data from the MPDU1 that the access point sent earlier, and the new one, they are trying to combine those data and see if they can decode the package.
Okay.
Question about that is how much resources need to be that on the station and on the access point if you send all those packages, and what if we are now talking about one MPDU that fails? What about 2 or 3 MPDU that are failing? How many storage need to be in the access point to store all the decoded things? And this is about one client. What about multiple clients? So I see a lot of features that are very interesting, but I see a lot of side notes that I'm not sure how that will be in how this will interact with the clients.
Yeah.
So that were my thoughts about BE, and like I said, I'm not sure if you want to share your thoughts about it. Hearing this.
Well, looking at this, I'm thinking you need a lot more memory and a lot more processing power in the access points to accomplish all of this. It requires a lot of coordination, aside from all the other things that it's already doing with the distributed OFDMA and such. So yeah, I wonder if this will eventually become a standard.
Yeah, me too. We will see how many features will be there and how long it will take, how many waves there will be, like BE wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
That being said, I want to also finish with Wi-Fi 8. And Wi-Fi 8 is .nl.
Yeah.
So
that's the end of Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's every solution, every problem in Wi-Fi will be solved with tulips, windmill, and cheese, and good as stroopwafels.
Yes, we will be conquering the world one stroopwafel at a time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, this is also the final Wi-Fi, right? I mean, there's no normal Wi-Fi.
Nothing need to be come after 8.
Okay.
So that was my part. Short. Like I said, open discussion. We can see what other things people think about it. We'll see if there are anything in the chat. Something in the chat come up.
Yeah, Ivo says NL rocks. So he's looking forward to the next standard. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to give my mic back to you, Dennis.
Yeah, thanks. Because I haven't kept up with the current state of 802.11ax, but I believe right now it's in draft version 5.0, right?
I do not know out of my head of that now.
Yeah. Anyway, we still don't have...
at 6. And
6 even?
6, yeah.
Okay, cool, 6. Yeah, but we still then don't have a final date on when Wi-Fi 6 will be finalized. So we'll just have to see. Anyway, I'd like to give the mic to Mr. Arjan. You also have a presentation prepared, so...
yeah, it was a bit of a last call. So I'm hoping I can see if I can share my desktop.
Oh, Germant is selling version 6.0, I think.
Let me see, because my Mac is doing difficult stuff. Yep, wow. So can you actually see my screen or?
No, not
now
yet.
It's happening. Now there it goes. Here it comes. Here it comes.
Okay. Right.
This is better, right?
Yeah.
Let's play this. So I did a quick introduction of myself already. I've been doing Wi-Fi since the time where it wasn't even called Wi-Fi. So that's like back in 97, 98. Like I said, CWNE, that and all that stuff. And next to Wi-Fi, one of my biggest loves is astronomy and astrophotography. You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is over there. And if you want to reach out by email, it's pretty obvious, my name @consia.com. So a bit more about myself. This is me now. So I'm in desperate need of an haircut. Like everybody else, but luckily...
You know they are already open in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, I know. It's like 17 million people want to go together all at the same time. So I'm just waiting. Anyway, where did it all start? I started out with a company called Fosco, and the first thing we did when we went to do Wi-Fi was no wires needed. Which was a Dutch company that used symbol chipsets to build the most basic APs running at 1 and 2 megabits per second. The reason why I tell this is because what I want to show you in a couple of slides in a moment is from that moment that I started doing Wi-Fi, I felt there was a lot of need for explaining the technology. First of all, to myself, because it was all new. So I had great benefits of trying to explain it to myself in everyday terms. And I noticed that customers and other people trying to start with Wi-Fi really liked the way of that kind of explanation. So that's basically what I want to focus on in a moment. After No Wire is Needed, a company called Trapeze came into being, and we started doing Trapeze Wireless, which later became Juniper, which later killed it. Too bad, because it was a really good solution. In the meantime, we started adopting Cisco, and I briefly touched on Aruba, but it's primarily Cisco nowadays, and we're starting to do a bit of Extreme as well, which now bought Aerohive, so most likely I will get in touch with Aerohive within the next few months. Next to that, I do a lot of innovation on Wi-Fi with regards to things like location-based services, IoT, give a lot of lectures on the topic and other topics as well, especially in the Astro stuff. So that's basically what I spend my days on. And when I'm not working, I like to do all kinds of lectures on astronomy. I volunteer at 2 observatories, do some deep space imaging, and make some wooden gizmos and stuff. So this is an overview of what I do, both privately and for my work, just to give you an idea. And the funny thing is, there on the bottom left is the 2nd generation of a No Wires Needed access point, which they called a Parrot. And it actually ran up to 11 megabits per second. So Mark's talk about hundreds and hundreds of megabits per second and even going up to a gig and over is, well, we were back in the days happy when we could reach 1 or 2 megabits per second throughput, and we were doing really good. So just to give you an idea where I come from and where I am at right now. So on to the topic. You asked me to help you out. So I was thinking, what could be an interesting topic, because there's a lot of technology talk already. So what I said is, in the previous slide, I like to help customers and others to start to learn about Wi-Fi by using everyday examples. And this helped me out through the years a lot, making it understandable for people who just don't deal with this stuff on a daily basis. So that's what came to mind. And yeah, talk about analogies for Wi-Fi subjects, making a difficult subject easy to understand. So as an example, I would like to present the use case of a dormitory. It's not the actual dormitory you see on the picture there, because I want to protect the privacy of the customer, but it is somewhat similar because it has 6 floors. It was divided in half, so a left side and a right side. And this customer had 2 provider modems per floor, meaning 2 APs per floor. And the general complaint was performance and user experience is terrible. So what was going on, and how did I explain to the customer what he was doing wrong? This was the case, and yes, they actually did this. This is the channel plan they used. This was an 11G network, no A yet. Well, you can see the 12 channels that we can use here in the Netherlands, actually 13, but since these are 6 floors, 12 APs, we can get away with 12 channels, right? Yeah. At least that was what the customer was thinking. Full power, because yeah, you have to reach all the way into that building, so they were blasting away. So this was the use case, and the customer just didn't understand what was going wrong. So I started to do what my daughters call the Techy Nerdy talk, with all kind of formulas and dB losses and all that stuff, distances with transmitters and receivers, and this customer was just staring at me like he just didn't understand what I was talking about. So I went down to this road, and I said, well, let's start with signal strength and use an everyday example. So I started out a conversation, and this actually happened. So this is roughly in a short version how it went. I said, do you have a long hallway? A pretty long hallway where we can still see each other? He said, yeah, sure, what about it? I said, well, you stand on one side, and I'm going to stand on the other side. He said, yeah, okay, let's do that. So we start walking away from each other. And then I said in a very silent voice, try to speak to me. And he was like, what? I can't hear you. And I said, I can hear you fine. He said, speak up, man. Hello. And actually what happened is he said, I think you get the point. At least that's what I mentioned. And he said, I think you're speaking about power levels. Because you were blabbing all about power levels and how important it is. And he started to get the picture. So a very basic example that I actually put to practice that really opened up the eyes of this customer. And he said, right, why didn't you say that the first time? Now I understand. This is an everyday example and I actually understand what you mean now. And if technology works the same way in a sort of the same sense, then yeah, I can understand what's going on here from a power level. So great, cleared up that problem. Second one is, but you said I can't use 12 channels. Why not? Why are there even 13 channels defined if I can't use them all? And I said, right, let's imagine we're going to speak at the same volume so you can hear me loud and clear, but we're going to do it during lunchtime with about 100 people in the same location and we're talking all together, all at the same time. And he actually said, in Dutch, of course, but a rough translation, it's not going to be the best place to discuss this because there's just too much noise from others talking. And I was like, right, that's exactly what I wanted you to say. So I looked at him and he was, okay, I think I can understand what you mean right now. So again, an everyday example that a customer eventually even comes up with his own remark, basically stating what I was trying to explain to him. So this is what I started doing throughout the years. And I did the same thing for antennas, which is also a somewhat tough subject to understand. And you can see I'm a guy kind of geek on astro stuff as well. So this is actually one of the deep space network antennas from NASA, where I did a 10-minute talk in the previous WPLC about the deep space network. So communication in a different way, but you can look it up on YouTube. But actually what I said with antennas was, well, I started out with focusing signals, transmitting, receiving, gain, parabolic, casograms, you name it. And again, he was just staring at me with a glazed eye and he said, I don't know what you mean. And I said, well, let's take a phone for comparison. Now, this was back in the day where they didn't have those cell phones yet, but the good old Nokia, but the idea is pretty much the same. I said, why would your phone actually work at such a great distance from those cell towers when you can see those cell towers just packed with big antennas and you are having this itty bitty phone, you can't hardly see an antenna and it still works. And he was like, yeah, I never really thought about it that way. But so how does that work? I said, well, just imagine something like this. It is a very simple analogy. It doesn't completely add up, but it kind of gives you a general idea of how it works. It's antennas basically focus the signal. So compare it to, and I don't know if this is the correct English word for it, ear trumpets, to focus the signal to your ear. And I also explained that this will also, of course, amplify noise. So the previous analogy of people and channels and hallways and all that stuff still work for this as well. You need to take that into account. But if you focus the signal, you can imagine what happens if you turn away these trumpets, for instance. You're going to hear something else and nothing around you. So this also really helped explaining him the basics of antennas, just to give them an understanding. If this is not your daily business, then these kind of examples are the easiest ones to help somebody understand this stuff. And lately, you've been seeing this a lot when explaining things like OFDMA with the traffic lanes, with the trucks driving with 802.11ax and all that stuff. So everybody started to pick up the benefit of analogies. So in a nutshell, that's basically what I plan to talk about.
Oh, great! Thank you very much. I think it's also a very good example because I'm also very fond of analogies because Wi-Fi is already a very complex subject right now, and it's bound to become even more complex, like you said, with OFDMA coming, and even with the things they're suggesting in 802.11be. So it's becoming really hard to explain those concepts to other engineers and also to customers. I like the concept that you used about sound, because I always I use an example when someone uses one access point to blast through his entire house instead of a couple of access points to evenly distribute the signal. I always say, like, okay, so if you come home and you turn on your stereo or your TV, do you run it to the loudest volume so you can hear it in every room? Well, no, I don't do that. No, because you have TVs or stereos wherever you want sound, not just one blasting through your entire house.
Yeah.
So that's also an argument for don't be running full power, because you won't get the best signal that way.
It's just using everyday objects, everyday examples that really open up eyes at customers. That's what I've noticed throughout the years, and I've been doing this for like 22 years. It always helps.
Yeah, definitely. So, thank you very much. That was actually quite impressive for a quick presentation that you just put together. So
yeah, I had hardly had the time to put anything together, but this is what I came up with.
Yeah, thanks very much. So next up, Bastiaan, are you ready?
Yes, if you can hear me, I'm ready.
Yes, we can hear you.
The unmute button. I have no slides available, so I have to do it with my notes I made. And there's still 20 minutes left. I may have material for 10 minutes, so maybe you have to jump in now and then.
Oh, that's okay.
Maybe do an open discussion. Yes, before we started, I saw Jesse and the others, Adrian, talk about, what was it, Wi-Fi signal, I think, on the Mac. I have a 2 here, but never says the name under the button. And sometimes I'm in places I see the Apple Wi-Fi logo show 4 lines, 4 stripes, suggesting it's excellent. But then if you look in Wi-Fi signal, it says extremely poor, the signal. Sometimes the MCS index is 1 or 0.
Yeah.
That stuff people, end users, do not understand. That's the topic of my talk. Because in the Slack discussion you mentioned non-expert opinions and misperceptions.
Yeah.
I tried to make 2 lists of these, but they seem to be quite interconnected. People are very opinionated about Wi-Fi, just like we are maybe now about viruses and medical things, or maybe you have to deal with some legal issue. Everybody has opinions about something. And
I think one of the main problems is everyone has Wi-Fi at home, so everyone is an expert.
That's what I think too. And what I noticed is in the office we set up good Wi-Fi from brands like Aerohive and Cisco and Ruckus and Aruba. And well, all these networks are pretty much underused, not used much. So everybody's moving to their work at home offices. And all the decisions that were made in the past have become the Wi-Fi standard for the moment. So instead of a nice Aerohive or Aruba access point, people have TP-Link and some Netgear and some other brands you see in the Media Mart kind of stores. I'm not sure what big international chain is, but it's basically the big store where you pick boxes off the shelf and pay for them, and typically you pay less than €100 or so, or $100. All these things are, well, set up the way whatever people were thinking of, and so that's not the Wi-Fi standard. So some people I know had the wisdom to install some Ethernet cables in their homes so they can connect their Wi-Fi to, so at least they have some decent Wi-Fi signal, or maybe even just a wired connection as an emergency solution in the work from home situation. And there's a lot of things people, we're working with things we have to deal with the situation the way it is, and it was based on most of it, I think, non-Wi-Fi, non-IT decisions. It's just people either getting a box from the internet provider, or they're buying a box somewhere in the IT store, and now we have to support it remotely because of the social distancing. Well, what can you do? Sometimes I'm forced to go on site because I support both the Wi-Fi and the Apple, and sometimes you cannot fix things remotely. So you have to do it now on site and try to do as much as you can remotely. And that was an interesting topic. I think it was the Mist and the Finnish company talking about last week in their webinar. How do you diagnose Wi-Fi problems from people who are on a remote location?
Yeah.
And it is quite challenging. Some people can install the Wi-Fi Explorer, the basic one. I've got Pro here, and you can let them run and maybe use screen sharing to see what's going on there. And basically, well, it's still, in my opinion, still some kind of trial and error. We have to find out how it works. The stay-at-home thing, well, it will be more than 2 months and maybe much longer, up to a year or beyond a year. You just have to find out. And well, if it's more than a year, I think at least you can make a plan and a set of things that can be managed remotely in the cloud, and you can have companies ship access points to people's homes and then figure out how to connect those, or maybe have their own systems to do that. And actually, I'm writing a bunch of blog posts about it in Dutch, and I hope to publish them soon.
Okay, cool.
And I need to have a look at my cheat sheet for the notes I made. One of the misconceptions, I think, is Wi-Fi is getting the blame for many IT problems. I've had complaints about VPN is bad. It's disconnecting all the time, and well, the VPN sucks. That's basically the complaint. And I say, well, are you sure it's the VPN, or what's the situation at the home? Now the Wi-Fi is fine. I've got this box for my ISP, and it's 300 megabits. It's perfect. Cannot be the cause. And well, in one case, I asked one of my customers 2 weeks ago, well, I think you're not far, your desk is not far from the modem. Can you just connect it with an Ethernet cable, see if the VPN is still bad then? So he did, and I haven't heard from him since. So I sent him an email, well, how's the VPN doing? No reply. So my little world, no news is good news. You hear from people when things are not working well, and if it's okay, well, they have other priorities, which is good. And I'm wondering, of the people listening now, how many of you are sort of forced to stop supporting the IT at your office and end up supporting all the home users with whatever equipment they have at hand? Mark is doing Schiphol Airport, what is it, thousands of access points, and most of them are not even used at the moment, I think. And not a question to Mark really, but it's more like, I don't know, I can understand that a lot of work to do do the maintenance of that, and now it's shifted somewhere else, maybe your own office.
Yeah, like I said, we have a maintenance team, there's like a design team, so, but we're consciously like to where Arjan works, and they help also supporting the Wi-Fi at Schiphol. It's just like even now when like the most planes are on the ground, it's still in day-to-day business to run the Wi-Fi, because a lot of people are still running over there. And I remember many times like Skype is not working, Wi-Fi is not good.
A lot of work now is being focused on people getting back to work. In case of Schiphol, passengers coming in again in hospitals where more and more patients are allowed in the hospital. So a lot of it revolves around reinstating the new normal and how we can utilize Wi-Fi to actually help identify busy areas that need special attention. So Wi-Fi can be a really quick way of determining whether the area is overpopulated or not. It's there, it is operational. You don't really need that much to do other tools to actually get insights into how busy an area is, simply by utilizing the data that's already in your network, in your Wi-Fi network, just getting it out and visualizing it. That's one of the things that I mention a lot at customers who want to do more with Wi-Fi, and said, well, there's a lot of data in your wireless network. Start by visualizing it. Just get that data out, visualize it, and see what it brings you. And it's overwhelming what you can learn from just visualizing data.
Okay, thank you. I may need some other people to jump in because I was checking my cheat sheet and I've mentioned most of my points. I can continue talking a bit about myself if anyone is interested.
Yeah, well, you did mention in the Slack group that you have another presentation next week. Maybe you could talk a bit about that.
That's not about Wi-Fi really. It's about another Slack group. It's called the International Mac Admins Group. Basically, IT guys working at corporations or schools or universities or freelance consultants like me, and the separate groups there basically exchanging ideas, but there's also some local groups organizing meetings, and sometimes there's only 1 or 2 meetings a year, and this year we had one in January, just before the COVID-19 thing started. Now there's a webinar next week, and if any Apple users in the Netherlands are listening now, connect to, what is it? I think it's macadmins.slack.com, and you can find some more information there. And it looks like the presentation will be next Thursday, and it's 1 hour between 4 and 5 in the afternoon, and basically it's split into 10-minute slots. And well, I was suggesting we can do a talk there. I have some ideas about it, but I want to discuss it on Slack. Maybe that's more interesting there than for the listeners here right now. So if anyone is interested, we can do that. Although the focus is more Apple than Wi-Fi, but I think especially Apple with all the missing connections for network cables, Wi-Fi is like essential and should be getting more focus in that group than I think it's getting there now.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone interested can sign up there and get the details about the conference there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and let's see, what else can we talk about? What's there?
Well, you just mentioned, like, I think one topic I also just want to make a video about in the future is, I don't know about you guys, but I get a lot of questions from friends and family about, you already mentioned it, Bastiaan, my Wi-Fi at home is terrible. It's really poor. What can I do to to improve that? And then when I say, like, you have to pull Ethernet cable and install multiple access points in your house, then they say, like, no, I'm looking for like a €100 solution. Is this Wi-Fi extender? Is that a good thing? You know? So,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while you're here anyway, can you fix my dishwasher as well? Because you're kind of handy guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anyone here that likes the mesh solutions for home use? They're cheap boxes, like they're being sold. It's being sold now like the new magic thing, replacing extenders. It's now all mesh. But I live in Amsterdam. I didn't tell that, and well, from many years ago, the Wi-Fi bands are overpopulated. If I start Wi-Fi Explorer at my own home office, within seconds I find 45 networks or so, and if I let it run for an hour, it's going up to 150, sometimes even more. And in a big part of the city, that's the case. And I don't think mesh will improve things much. It will just add more noise on the Wi-Fi bands because the backhaul is on another channel. And
so that would be a really interesting use case for testing out 11AX BSS coloring to see if it actually is going to work. Because theoretically it sounds great, but I'm really anxious to see what the real world will bring with regards to BSS coloring.
Yeah. I was also very disappointed when Google announced their new access points and they weren't Wi-Fi 6, so no BSS coloring for their mesh solution.
No.
Yeah. But anyway,
even except a lot of AX feature also see like how it's going to work. Like coloring is very interesting that you can reuse the channels. I'm looking very forward to that feature, but also like how many clients will support it. How much does it cost for your devices to going to support a chip that the cheapest chip that support coloring? Like I said, it looks interesting feature, but I'm first see then believe before it is on the clients. It will probably take a couple of years.
Yeah, so I guess when you get a Wi-Fi 6 mesh solution at home, then you have to make all your clients compatible. So you only have to use, right now, I think iPhones and iPads and stuff like that.
I'm not opposed to that part.
And advise your neighbors to go for the 11G channels. So set them at channel 1 and 6, and you get all the 5 gigahertz in the world for yourself.
Yeah,
that's what I always say.
Actually, that's a good point, I think, because a lot of solutions will cost money, and that is raising the question: who's going to pay for that? Because a business access point can be, I don't know, from 300-400 euros up to 1,000, I think. If you get the what is it? The 4 antenna, 4 band. What is it? 4x4 solutions. But now at home, people need something comparable, maybe not as advanced, but at least fast enough and stable enough. And there's a price tag to it, and are employers going to pay for that? Or I don't know. It's something we will need to find out in the next weeks and months.
Yeah.
Because employers needing to send Wi-Fi boxes to a few hundred employees, that will cost a small fortune. And I can imagine they want some cloud-based brand like, I don't know, Ruckus Cloud or Aerohive, which have been using cloud management for a long time, so you can have one small group of people managing all these things. And well, we have to find out. But I think the whole COVID situation is a game changer because of all the work from home things, and also the social distancing within offices, especially in Amsterdam, where sometimes a lot of people are sharing one room, and that room was maybe used by 10 people. Now it can only be 2, and we have to find out. And I'm sure there will be a lot of stuff to talk about in the next webinars.
Yeah, I'm sure there will. We have a lot of challenges for the future ahead of us.
Yes,
awesome.
Certainly. So that leaves us with 3 more minutes. Any suggestions?
Well, I see that.
Next, we could come on and start a little transition between the two if you like.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Well, Peter's here. Alan's here. We got the whole transition team.
Yeah, the whole transition team. That was great. Thank you, guys. Just thought we'd come on. I've really enjoyed it. So far, I think the content and all these have been great. I just thought I'd give us a quick update on our WLA Pod-A-Thon fundraiser. We are now at $1,796. So
nice.
that's fantastic.
Amazing.
So thank you to everyone who has given. That money for people who have just joined, that's going straight to the Coronavirus Relief Fund. If you are able to give, it'd be great if we could. Let's see if we can make $2,000 during this next podcast. That would be awesome. I am going to, I think it's already put in the chat, but if you look in the chat, you should see a link to the giving page. So let's see how big we can make that.